Hey y'all, welcome back to this week's episode of AMA Friday with Amy Miller, Recruiting in Yoga Pants. So this week we are digging into our third video of our little ATS mini-series about what is an ATS good for anyway, why do we have them, why do we use them, why do we make you use them to apply to your dream job. So we started with an overview a couple weeks back. We then dug into our opening a new requisition, so what happens on the inside when we have a role to hire for, followed by the candidate workflow last week. That's where many of you find yourselves as job applicants. Today, we are digging into documentation. There are three kinds of documentation that typically go into an ATS. I wrote them down. trying to get a little ahead of it here this week. So the first kind of documentation is going to be the candidate documentation. That is what you are providing, my friends. So this is probably your resume, right? You're uploading that along with your application data. So app data is probably in there. This might be assessment results, right? If you are like software engineer, or there's, oh God help us if there's like a personality test, like different companies are gonna have different things. Sorry, I don't make the rules. But any of that kind of data that is generated by you, we're going to find that in the ATS. Typically, this information is going to live under your candidate record. So much like we talked about last week, where I can access your candidate record through a few different ways. I can look at an open rec and I can see all the people that have applied to it or maybe been tagged to it by a recruiter. I can also search by your email, by your name. If you have a very common name, that can be tricky. We want to have some identifier so that we're finding the right person. But then I can click on your name, typically will be hyperlinked, and that takes me to a record or a page in the ATS that has all your info. Not all your info. Let me clarify. A lot of the information that you provide will be available to me. Some of it may not. So everything that's documented here, all the things we're going to talk about today, does depend on who has an actual business need to see that info. EEOC data, as an example. So a lot of times candidates are providing race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation. Like there's some fairly invasive questions. And I've talked to lots of job seekers who are like, I ain't giving you shit. I'm not answering that. I don't care. I honestly, let me put it this way. As a recruiter who has access to a lot of data, this right here, I don't give a shit. I don't see it. I don't have access to it. Even if I did have access to it, I wouldn't look at it because I don't care. That said, I do have a responsibility to try to help build diverse teams, things like that. Sourcing efforts can obviously be targeted to folks with maybe non-traditional backgrounds, or we tap into like resource groups like Women in Tech, things like that. But from a decision-making perspective, and when it's time to look at your resume and make a go, no-go decision, or reviewing your interview feedback and making a go, no-go decision, the EEOC stuff, nothing to do with it. I don't see it. Next week, we are going to talk about reporting. We're going to finish this series with reporting. So how all of this data is then used to make business decisions or provide government information, things like that. So we'll dig into that a little bit more. But I did want to just quickly sidebar and clarify that, yeah, you're potentially putting a lot of information into the ATS. Not all of it is actually used for the purposes of reviewing your application and interviewing and possibly hiring you. More next week. Okay. Second kind of data that we're going to look at is user data. So what I mean by user data, this is where I'm talking about the ATS user, which is me. Okay. So I will have feedback, interview notes, just all kinds of manually inputted information. So I'm a user, my recruiting coordinator is a user, my hiring manager is a user of the ATS, a recruiting manager might be a user. And again, this more when we talk about reporting, you'll see kind of how they use these systems and information, all that kind of stuff. But this is data that we are actually putting in. So an example of that, which we touched on during candidate workflow last week, you apply to a role, I look at your candidate data and say, oh, okay, this person's applied to this position and the resume says, that they're a good fit. And oh, I can see that they're a local candidate, so I don't have to ask about relocation because I assume, if you're not local, I will just ask you, or do you want to move? That's fine. I'm not calling people who don't live in Seattle. Believe me, never hire anybody. But I am going to quickly review the information, kind of prepare myself for our conversation, and then we're going to start talking. I'm going to get on the call with you. We're going to schedule a recruiting phone screen or what have you, and I'm going to add to the data that I already have with more context. Yeah, this person is, actively on the job market. They're starting to interview a lot. We got to move quickly. I want to jot that down. Wow, this person's super passive and they're going to need, 3 times the money we can afford for this rec. Oh gosh, maybe we should pause on this one. And I'm going to get those insights from you. We're going to talk about the potential fit. You and I hopefully will leave that call with a clear decision based on both of our inputs if we're moving forward or not. And I'm going to document all of that. I'm going to add notes in the system that say, yeah, I talked to Bill. He is ready to go, available to interview in 2 weeks. We're clear on compensation. He'd be happy with an offer of X. And here's our specific next step. I'm writing all that down, typing all that in to the ATS, because the one consistent rule in all of recruiting in 25 years, everywhere I've worked, if it's not in the ATS, it didn't happen. Just saying. We have to be able to prove and document in detail these conversations that we've had. It is also very handy when we go back and say, okay, I know we talked 3 days ago. Oh my God, what did we talk about? What did we decide? Oh, wait, let me read my notes. And thankfully they're typed. I don't have to worry about reading my own handwriting. That's a win. All right, so that's another kind of data. Interview feedback, of course, would be included here. Hiring managers are inputting information, suggestions, notes from their conversations with you, those kinds of things. There are obviously some rules. I won't get into all the specifics here, but it's one of those use your best judgment things, right? Like, don't write stupid shit in the ATS. You can write factual things. You can quote people. For example, I had the privilege of being able to quote someone who told me to go do something unmentionable to a goat. In fact, I didn't quote them so much as I noticed that they sent me an email that said that, which leads me to the third kind of data, automated. I know, I've been telling y'all for years there's no bots. That's not what I mean. But when we talk about automated data, this is information that is timestamped, right? Like, I will be able to, again, go look at that candidate record and I can see the various pivot points through your candidate journey here, right? And so maybe it's, applied on this day, message sent on that day, interview scheduled on that day. So these kinds of things are like based on actions we're taking in the ATS and maybe like moving you from stage to stage. There will be a note automatically added, phone screen request, assigned to a different person for whatever, things like that. So we get kind of that automated stuff. Also, speaking of my friend who wanted the terrible things with goats to happen, that was an email sync. Now, not every ATS does this. I've worked with a couple, maybe, I think three different systems that can do this. And Sometimes it's just every email that comes from that email address associated with your candidate profile. Sometimes it's if we on the inside have kicked off the conversation in the ATS. So like I press a button in the ATS and it send a message and that pops up my Outlook or my G Suite and I type the message and hit send, and like those systems talk to each other, right? So all of those emails, my initial outgoing email, all of your responses to me are all tracked there. So that's another example of like automated data that is collected and stored in the ATS. So why does all of this matter? Why do we need all of this information, and what do we do with this data? In addition to reporting, which we're going to talk about next week, we also need this data just for our own sanity, frankly, and also to do the right thing by you, right? This information helps us understand what stage is the person at, what is the next step that needs to be triggered, what were the previous conversations or promises made or things implied that a candidate is expecting. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow and I have to have somebody take over all of my roles and all of my candidates, they need to be able to read the history and read the notes and understand what Amy and Bill talked about last, right? What were the conversations and what stage is this person at? All of those things really, really matter. So reporting is definitely a big part of it. That's why I'm going to make its own video next week so we can spend a good chunk of time understanding those pieces. But just being able to be really clear on what's happened so far, who said what to whom, what previous data exists that might help us make a decision. Those kinds of things are really, really important to the workflow. Quick side note, and I'll leave it here, on older data. There are typically some rules around how long we can consider previous feedback. On the good side, so a positive way that that's used is maybe we say interview feedback is good for 6 months. So you go through an interview process and we get great feedback and we say, yes, this person is totally inclined for this role. We want to hire them, but you decide not to come for whatever reason. Okay. You take a counter offer, you go somewhere else, you're not ready to leave, whatever the reason is. Let's say you call me again in 3 months and you're like, hey, you know what? I've thought a lot about this. I actually am ready to make a change. What do you think? I think I can make you an offer. Now, this is assuming I have an open role. That's part of it, right? Because that job hopefully isn't still available, but maybe a different position is available. That's in the same job family. That's in the same level and location and all that good stuff. So I actually have verified data that says this person is a fit for this job, make the offer, which is great. Now, where can it potentially hurt? I'll use Google as an example, just because I can. Cooling off period. I have a video about cooling off periods. You can check that out. But if we had history in the ATS that this person has interviewed a full interview in the last 1 to 2 years, we are not revisiting that candidate. Google has a at least for the roles I worked on, software engineering, very strict cooling off period. If the interview was not inclined, we did not talk again for a minimum 1 year, upwards of 2 years. Now, if it was close, if it was mixed, if it was, there's some nuances there, we could sometimes pull some things out and get some exceptions approved. But for the most part, we would look at the history. Oof, that person just interviewed 6 months ago, wasn't inclined, got to put them on the list to call again in 6 months. So that kind of data, again, helps us do our job more effectively, hopefully has a benefit of having the right people contact you about the right things with the right knowledge. No, it doesn't always work that way, but that is the goal, right? So, all right, friends, that was a long video. We had a lot I wanted to get out and share with you on that. Hopefully that helps, again, gives you a starting point to understand some of the basics of this stuff and formulate the right questions for the recruiter in your life so that you can better understand how they use their ATS. All right, come back next week. We're going to dig into reporting. I'll see you then.